the tendency to emphasize the transcendent qualities of enlightenment, of awakening, of spirituality is an error that has caused a division between divine and human. A division that we see in the patriarchy of religion and the patriarchy of spirituality. When I say patriarchy, I mean the emphasis of mind over heart, the emphasis on the mind qualities of awakening, of enlightenment, of self-realization, mind qualities such as wisdom, insight, clarity, and a kind of all-knowing, all-seeing, godlike state. That patriarchy is represented in religion, where God is supreme perfection and man is sinful. It's replicated in spiritual traditions. Where the guru is usually male and is all-seeing, all-knowing, the holder of supreme wisdom. The division, the patriarchy between mind and heart, patriarchy that is represented in many traditions and lineages and teachings, in which the very nitty-gritty of life, as represented, as lived in intimate relationships, is ignored or denied. Where relationships are either renounced in the name of celibacy and spiritual purity, or they're a side dish, where the spiritual teacher, the master, the guru, continues to have a household, a family, but that is usually separated from the purity of self-realization. So the family, the relationship, the wife continues to be messy or difficult. And somehow, the light of awakening, the light of enlightenment does not flow into that relationship. Or the relationship is a side dish in the sense of having a girlfriend, a concubine, that is not included in awakening, in the awakened state, in the living of that awakening. We see that patriarchy trickling down into modern day spirituality, and particularly into some aspects of non-duality teachings, where there is an over-identification with the non-dual state, a state in which we have transcended thought and feeling, a state in which the mess, the vulnerability of the human experience is often denied. That's changing because conversations like this are happening, certainly at this conference. That's why we're here. But it still goes on, both in practitioners and teachers, where there is a fear of feeling the vulnerability of intimacy, where there is a denial of feeling and emotion, of heartbreak, of tenderness. And so that patriarchy is replicated as a kind of mind over heart, an absolute over relative, where the absolute is elevated as the ultimate state and held up as the destination, as the final prize. And then there is confusion in how that filters into the everyday lived experience. Very often, awakening, because there are so many awakening experiences these days, is not complete, it's not mature, it hasn't ripened. In some ways, it's easy to have a non-dual experience, a realization of no self, a seeing through the identification with form. But when that is grasped too soon, it creates another subtle veneer of identity and perpetuates the inner division. There's another part to the journey, and that's the journey of ripening, that's the journey of deepening. It's the journey of surrender. The surrender of all identity, the surrender of all states, the surrender of the absolute as the final destination. It's a surrender that can only be met through the heart. And it's in the crucible of intimate relationship that the heart is invited, that we can sense and feel and meet, where there is armoring around the heart, where there is defendedness, where there is a fear of a deeper vulnerability. It's in the heart, in intimate relationship, that we are invited to be the open hand. The open hand of undefendedness. Just because there is an opening as the realization of non-duality, of a non-dual perspective or seeing, does not mean that it automatically filters in to all the recesses of the heart, of the human experience, the places where we might have closed off in the past through personal wounding, through boundary violation. If that work has not already been done, then it has to be met in the everyday interactions. And it's in the intimate relationships that we we hold on to our defendedness. It's in intimate relationships where we need to be loved, where we're afraid to trust, that we can start to purify those places where the clenched fist of reactivity, of defense, of attack, of righteousness still continues to play itself out. It's not that it's something wrong, it's just a deeper softening. It's a softening into tenderness. The invitation of the open hand is always here. The invitation of the open hand is always here when relationship doesn't give us what we want. When relationship doesn't live up to our dreams and fantasies. When the seeking mechanism continues to play itself out in relationship, the need for comfort, the need for safety, the need for security. That's where a deeper purification can take place. The open hand doesn't mean that we get trampled on in relationship, that we become a victim of the other, a doormat to the other. It means we can meet the other undefendedly. To meet the other and to meet ourselves undefendedly means to feel all emotions, to feel all feelings, to stand open in the face of the greatest storm, of the greatest turbulence, to be ruthlessly honest with oneself as to what is here. There's a lot of talk about triggers in relationship. Being triggered. And there's a lot of confusion when there's been an awakening and then there seems to be still a sense of being triggered in relationship. I'd just like to invite in a refinement of what a trigger really is. Very often, this term trigger is used to mean any feeling, any emotion. And that's where the confusion is. How can I have awakened? How can there be this pristine clarity and openness? And still, there is a feeling. That's not a trigger. Feelings are not triggers. Feelings are feelings. And feelings continue whether you're awakened or not, whether you're enlightened or not. To deny that is a lie. To deny that is a perpetuation of the inner patriarchy. Does not serve you, and it does not serve the world. Feelings continue. The open hand is okay with feelings. Feelings do not mean you have to react. Feelings do not mean there is a defense and attack. But there is a ruthless honesty about what is here. just to highlight the difference, is what happens when somehow something, some situation, some matrix of experience reminds you, takes you back into the visceral experience of something that happened in the past. A something that involved a violation of boundaries. A shock of some kind, a trauma, an abuse, in which you were helpless in the face of that. When we're triggered, it's as if we vacate the premises. You're not here anymore. You space out, you shrink. The veil comes down. That may lead to reactivity, or it may lead to defense, withdrawing into a shell. That may happen in relationship, but what I'm speaking about is feelings. They may be strong feelings, they may be deep feelings, they may be tender feelings, they may be piercing feelings. Feelings are what are felt. Your heart may be broken open. There may be great fear, there may be great vulnerability, and so on. In relationship, the invitation is to listen to what is true in you, so that there is no denial, there is no cover-up, there is no avoidance, there is no rejection. You're simply here, even when the storm is raging. You're hanging out in the storm. You're surfing what is here. You're present and open. That's the open hand. When we can meet ourselves and meet another as that, then everything changes in relationship. We start relating rather than needing the other to conform to our ideas, to our needs, to our wants. We start to see more clearly. And in that openness, that honesty, true love can grow. It's as if a third body starts to grow. That third body is the body of love, born from the open hand. And over time, we start to relate from silence. When I say silence, I also mean openness. I also mean wholeness. I mean the place where division has come to an end. The division of I'm right, you're wrong, or you're right, I'm wrong. In other words, the division created by self-righteousness, which pulls us back into the clenched fist. It's the end of division, of mind over heart, where mind thinks it should be like this, I should be like this, or you should be like this or that, whereas the truth of the heart is ignored. Silence is the end of division. Silence is a tenderness. It's a falling into the unknown. Initially, that makes us feel vulnerable. To be that exposed, to be that honest, to be that tender, seems to make us open to being hurt. But over time, we come to learn that this openness, this falling into the unknownness, this meeting of what is here without trying to find a position in that, is the birth of love. Then relationship takes a whole different dimension of experience. We start to live as surrender. See, this word surrender is very scary to the separate self. We think of surrender as surrendering to something, usually the enemy. But the deeper meaning of surrender is the falling into unknownness. Falling into unknownness means the end of self-righteousness. It's an ongoing freshness of this experience, meeting this experience and this experience. So that when something arises in you, a feeling, a wave of energy, there is no repression of that, but a curiosity of meeting that, an allowing of that. Everything is welcome. And when everything is welcome in you, then the relationship grows to welcome in more and more. Stops being a narrow band of need and starts to become like a bubbling brook of joy. When we live as surrender, as the open hand in intimate relationship, this has great impact not only on the relationship, but on the totality of your life. Relationship is a microcosm of your relationship with life. To live as the open hand is the end of the war within you. And each of us is the cause of the war in the world. When division ends in you, that is the beginning of the end of war. So far from being a selfish matter, relationship being a selfish matter, being about me and my needs and my cozy life, relationship is a dose of medicine in the world. But it can only be that medicine when we are willing to live as the open hand in relationship. The battle is usually great in relationship. The pain is usually great in relationship. The war is usually great in relationship. But it's only a reflection of the war within. The war between mind and heart. So the first place to start is with an inner investigation, an honesty with yourself. Am I willing to surrender self-righteousness? Am I willing to put down all weapons of war? Am I willing to stand as openness in this hell, in this storm? The answer is for you to find out.